Why do you keep giving people the benefit of the doubt, only to be stabbed in the back by the very hand you tried to hold? They smile, they promise, they swear they mean no harm, and yet, somehow, you end up betrayed. Again. It's not just coincidence. It's not just bad luck. It's a psychological trap, a spiritual wound, a manipulation that begins not with them, but with you and your desire to trust blindly. Niccolo Machiavelli, the infamous political philosopher, warned us centuries ago. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and greedy. Not because they're evil, but because power and survival make people unpredictable, and trusting them without discernment, that's not compassion. That's a strategy for self-destruction. But here's the brutal truth no one tells you. Trust is not a virtue if it's blind. It's a vulnerability weaponized against you. Think about it. Have you ever told someone your deepest fear, only to watch them use it against you? Have you ever helped someone rise, only to be kicked down the moment they no longer needed you? Have you ever felt a strange guilt for being suspicious, as if protecting yourself was something to be ashamed of? You were trained to believe that trust equals goodness. But Machiavelli would laugh at such naivety. Because in the real world, where power rules and intentions are cloaked behind charm, the trusting soul becomes the easiest pawn. And that's where our journey begins. In this video, we're diving deep into the hidden psychology of why you keep trusting the wrong people, how manipulators spot and exploit your blind faith, and what Machiavelli's chilling insights reveal about human nature, loyalty, and power. But this isn't about becoming cold or cruel. It's about awakening. It's about learning the subtle art of intelligent trust, where you see through the mask, raid the silences, and finally stop handing your soul to those who haven't earned it. Because when you understand the truth behind how power works, silently, invisibly, like a shadow that moves behind smiles, you stop being their victim. You become untouchable. So if you've ever felt betrayed, used, or manipulated, if you've ever wondered why your kindness keeps backfiring, stay with me till the end. This might be the most important psychological armor you'll ever learn to wear. And before we begin, take a moment to comment below. What's one time you trusted someone and regretted it? Your story might help someone else wake up. Now let's begin and expose the truth Machiavelli tried to warn us about. The truth you were never meant to hear. Welcome to Psychra. They say trust is the glue of relationships. But what if that glue is laced with poison? Most people don't lie with their words. They lie with their smiles, with their eyes, with the perfectly timed nods and the rehearsed humility. They present you with a mirror, not a face, reflecting back exactly what you want to see, and you fall for it. Not because you're foolish, but because you hope they're telling the truth. That hope, that fragile flickering hope that the world might not be as cruel as you've seen. That's what they prey on. Machiavelli didn't believe in human goodness as a default. He saw the world not as it should be, but as it is. A place where most people are driven by self-interest, cloaked in courtesy, where trust is not given, but calculated, measured, held back until proven, and even then, only in fragments. And yet, most of us live as if everyone deserves our full access. Our deepest thoughts, our loyalty, our time. Why? Because we're taught that suspicion is a flaw, that questioning someone's intentions makes you the problem. So, you suppress the whisper in your gut. You silence the instinct that twitches when someone's words don't quite match their energy. That silence is your undoing. Let's be honest. How many betrayals in your life could have been avoided if you had simply listened to your intuition? How many times did you know something felt off, but you overrode it in favor of giving them a chance? And how often did that chance become a lesson carved in pain? This is where Machiavelli's genius cuts through the fog. He writes in The Prince, "A wise ruler ought not to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interest. It sounds harsh, even cruel, but it's not a command to deceive. It's a warning that others will deceive you if you assume they won't. In other words, the game of trust is not about morality. It's about strategy. We assume that if someone means well, they will act well. But people rarely betray with pure malice. Most betrayals come from weakness, not wickedness. A friend confides in someone to feel seen, but shares your secret. A business partner cuts corners to survive, but puts your reputation at risk. A lover lies to avoid conflict, but leaves you drowning in confusion. They don't see it as betrayal. They see it as self-preservation. And unless you understand this, you'll keep holding people to a moral standard they've never agreed to. Now ask yourself, do you truly know the intentions of the people around you? Or have you just assumed they're good, because it's easier than facing the discomfort of doubt? There's a reason manipulators often seem so trustworthy. They've studied your emotional needs. They know you crave connection, loyalty, honesty, and they give you just enough of it to keep you hooked until you become dependent on the illusion. Because that's what it is, an illusion. The truth is, trust is not a gift. It's a mirror. It reflects how you wish the world to be, not how it is. And until you confront that longing, you'll continue attracting those who exploit it. But there's another way. The way Machiavelli hints at. The way of silent observation. You don't trust what people say. You trust patterns. You trust consistency. You trust how someone treats others when they have nothing to gain. You learn to delay trust, not deny it. You watch how they behave when they're under pressure, how they respond to your boundaries, how they speak about others when those others aren't listening. And slowly, you begin to see through the mask. Because here's the raw truth. Most people will reveal themselves if you stay quiet long enough, if you stop rushing to bond, if you stop over-explaining your values, hoping they'll align. If you simply watch, they will show you exactly who they are. So the next time someone walks into your life with warm eyes and quick promises, ask yourself, do I trust them because they're trustworthy or because I need someone to be? That single question could save you years of heartbreak, betrayal, and emotional exhaustion. Because in a world where intentions are murky and masks are polished, the only real protection is clarity. And clarity begins when you stop assuming everyone means well and start observing who moves in silence when the lights go out, when power shifts, when no one is watching. That's when the truth speaks. And when you learn to hear it, not through words, but through patterns, you become immune to deception. You no longer need to fear betrayal because you finally understood the game. To understand the art of manipulation, you must first understand what manipulators look for. And no, it's not weakness, it's openness. The most dangerous people don't chase the broken. They chase the kind, the loyal, the trusting. Because these are the ones least likely to see it coming. You've been told your whole life that trust is a virtue. But no one warned you that manipulators see trust as an invitation, not to connect, but to control. Machiavelli understood this far better than most psychologists ever could. He knew that in a world driven by survival and power, people will say whatever they must to maintain appearances, while plotting behind the scenes. This isn't just theory, it's a psychological pattern. Let's break it down. Manipulators work in silence. They don't attack your strength. They amplify your dreams. They mirror your values. They feed your ego, just enough to keep you believing that they're safe. They start by studying you. What do you crave? Validation? Belonging? A sense of purpose? They offer it, not sincerely, but surgically. They give you exactly what you need, just long enough to make you dependent. And once you are, the game begins. Because manipulation isn't about force. It's about subtle leverage. It's about making you feel guilty for pulling away, ashamed for having boundaries, paranoid for noticing red flags. Have you ever had someone twist your words until you doubted your own memory? Have you ever apologized for things you didn't do, just to keep the peace? Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, but couldn't explain why. These aren't accidents. They're tactics. The manipulator's greatest weapon is your need to be seen as good, because once you value being nice more than being free, you become their puppet. Machiavelli would call this a form of psychological warfare, where the battlefield isn't land or politics, but your inner world, your self-image. And the moment you equate trust with virtue instead of strategy, you disarm yourself completely. Let's go deeper. What is it about trust that makes it so powerful and so dangerous? It bypasses logic. When you trust someone, you stop scrutinizing their behavior. You explain away the inconsistencies. You silence your intuition. You begin to hope they didn't mean it. You tell yourself they were just stressed. You forgive too quickly. You forget too easily. And by the time the betrayal becomes undeniable, they've already taken what they wanted. Your time, your resources, your energy, your peace. This is why manipulators don't waste time on those who ask questions. They target the ones who assume goodness, because goodness, when blind, is the easiest path to access. And here's the paradox. They will often frame you as the manipulator the moment you draw a boundary. They'll call you ungrateful, disloyal, dramatic, because your awareness threatens their game. So how do you protect yourself? You develop the one thing manipulators fear the most: discernment. Not paranoia, not cynicism, but quiet, calm discernment. You listen more than you speak. You notice when someone rushes intimacy. You observe who respects your no without trying to change it. You watch how they respond to your silence, not your affection. And slowly, a pattern emerges. The manipulator becomes uncomfortable when they can't read you, when you don't spill your emotions too fast, when you ask questions instead of offering blind faith, because once you stop playing their game, they lose control. Machiavelli once said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." In other words, people will say what they must to gain your trust, and abandon it the moment it no longer serves them. Your job is not to become heartless, it's to become awake. Because emotional intelligence isn't about being soft, it's about being sharp. It's about recognizing patterns of guilt tripping, of false vulnerability, of excessive flattery, and responding not with rage, but with distance. You don't need to expose them, you just need to stop feeding them. Because here's the secret. Manipulators can't survive without your participation. They need your attention, your confusion, your over-explaining. Withdraw all of that, and they collapse. So the next time someone seems too perfect, too aligned, too quick to bond, pause. Ask yourself, what have they really done to earn my trust, besides know what to say? You are not cruel for being cautious. You are not broken for questioning sincerity. You are simply awakening to a deeper truth, that in a world where power hides behind politeness, only those who see through the mask remain truly free. We live in a world obsessed with instant connections. Swipe right, accept the friend request, share your story. But what if this very impulse, the urge to trust quickly, is the silent architect of our suffering? To stop trusting so easily is not to build walls. It's to build a throne of self-mastery, of clarity, of power grounded in wisdom rather than hope. Machiavelli was a master of this principle. He understood that true power is not given. It is taken with eyes wide open. It is earned in the silence between words, in the patience that watches before it acts. Trust, when withheld, not out of fear, but out of discernment, is not cruelty. It is sovereignty. Imagine this. Someone enters your life with smooth words, promises, and warmth. You feel the magnetic pull to open your heart and your world. But instead of rushing to meet them halfway, you pause. You don't reply immediately. You don't reveal everything. You let time be your ally, not your enemy. This pause is uncomfortable, isn't it? It feels unnatural, because society equates quick trust with goodness and delay with suspicion. But this discomfort is the birthplace of power. You watch how they respond. Do they respect your space? Or do they push, insist, guilt trip? Do they honor your boundaries silently, or do they create chaos in your mind? By delaying trust, you turn the tables. You become the one who controls the tempo, who decides when, how, and why trust is granted. This is more than just self-protection. It is a radical act of self-love, because when you give your trust too freely, you dilute your energy. You scatter your presence like dust in the wind. You become vulnerable not only to others, but to your own exhaustion. But when you reserve trust for those who prove themselves in action, when you watch how they behave in crisis, not just in comfort, you reclaim your energy, your time, your peace. Ask yourself, how many times have you wished for a sign that someone truly deserves your trust? How often have you missed the quiet clues that whispered, "Wait"? Here is a question for you, and I want you to pause and reflect. When was the last time you trusted someone too quickly and paid the price? I invite you to share your story in the comments below, because in this sharing, we begin to unravel the illusion that trust must be blind to be genuine. Your experience is a lesson, not just for you, but for everyone watching. So please, hit that like button if this resonates, and comment with your story or your thoughts on trust and betrayal. Together, we create a space where truth is spoken and trusted, slowly, deliberately, and with intention. Remember, trust is not an all-or-nothing gamble. It's a dance, a negotiation between vulnerability and strength. And mastering this dance means mastering yourself, because the person you must first learn to trust is you. Your intuition, your boundaries, your right to say no without guilt. When you start trusting yourself more than others, you stop being a victim of manipulation. You stop being the prize to be won or the pawn to be used. Instead, you become the player, the strategist who moves silently but powerfully across the board. This transformation is not easy. It demands patience, it demands introspection, it demands courage, but it is the path to true freedom. So, I ask you again, will you stop giving your trust away like currency? Will you begin to demand proof before surrendering your heart? Will you choose sovereignty over desperation? If you are ready to walk this path, to embrace the power of delayed trust, then stay with me. The next sections will reveal exactly how to recognize the subtle signs of deception and how to protect your inner world without shutting it down. But before we move on, take a moment now. Like this video if you feel the weight of this truth. Comment below with your thoughts or experiences, because your voice matters in this journey. And share this with someone you care about who might need to hear this message, because the game of trust is not just personal, it's universal, and the awakening must be collective. Are you ready to see the truth beyond the mask? There is a cruel irony in manipulation. The more skillful the manipulator, the less obvious their moves. Manipulation rarely announces itself with shouting or violence. It creeps in like a shadow in the quietest room, invisible to those untrained in its subtle language. This is why so many people remain blind to it until the damage is done. But what if you could learn to see it? To read the hidden patterns beneath the surface, to recognize the invisible signs before the trap springs. This is not a gift reserved for a select few. It is a skill anyone can cultivate, a form of psychological vision, a kind of emotional radar. Let me share with you what to look for, the silent signals of manipulation that often go unnoticed. 1. The rush to intimacy. True trust is a slow burn. It simmers and simmers, building depth over time. Manipulators, however, push for instant intimacy. They reveal too much too soon. Stories designed to create false closeness, binding you to them with a fabricated emotional thread. When someone insists on rapid closeness, pause. Ask yourself, is this genuine or is it a trap? 2. The invisible debt manipulators owe you nothing, but they make you feel indebted. Small favors, compliments, moments of apparent vulnerability. They pile them up silently, waiting for the moment to call them in. Have you ever felt guilt spiral over something you didn't ask for? This is no accident. 3. The inconsistent mirror manipulators are master actors, reflecting back what they think you want to see. But this reflection is often inconsistent, changing subtly when you aren't looking, leaving you confused and doubting yourself. Do you find yourself constantly questioning the reality of your interactions? That too is a red flag. 4. The boundary tests. Watch how they respond to your no. Manipulators do not respect boundaries. They push, they plead. They manipulate your empathy to break down your limits. A healthy person accepts your no without question. A manipulator sees it as a challenge. 5. The silent sabotage manipulation often hides in silence, omissions, half-truths, subtle exclusions. These create confusion and self-doubt. When your trust is built on what is left unsaid, it is a fragile illusion. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward liberation. But awareness alone is not enough. You must learn to act without losing your humanity, to defend your inner world with grace, not aggression. Machiavelli knew this well. Power wielded without wisdom becomes tyranny. So how do you respond when you see these signs? You become the quiet observer. You hold your ground with calm resolve. You don't rush to judgment. You don't lash out in anger. You let your silence be your fortress. Because the manipulator's strength lies in your reaction, in your confusion, your hurt, your desperation. Strip that away and their power dissolves. Trust becomes not a gamble, but a choice you make consciously, on your terms and with eyes wide open. So here is your challenge. Begin today to notice these invisible signs in your relationships, personal and professional. Document them quietly. Reflect on your reactions. In the next and final section, we will uncover how to reclaim your power fully, how to rebuild your trust muscle with intention and courage. But before we get there, I want to hear from you. Have you noticed any of these signs in your life? How did you respond? Drop a comment below, share your story, or simply say, "I'm ready," if you want to take back control. If this insight is shifting something inside you, please hit like. It helps bring these truths to more people who need them. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect moment to join us on this journey of awakening. Together, we are learning not just to survive the game of power, but to master it. Are you ready to reclaim your sovereignty? To stop trusting so easily is not simply a survival tactic. It is the beginning of a profound transformation, a radical rebirth of the self. In a world that demands we give our trust as if it were a currency handed out carelessly, choosing to guard it becomes an act of rebellion, a reclaiming of sovereignty that shakes the very foundations of how we relate to power, to others, and to ourselves. Trust, when offered blindly, is not generosity. It is submission. A slow erosion of your boundaries, your energy, your dignity. But trust, when given with intention and guarded with wisdom, becomes the gateway to freedom. Freedom from the chains of manipulation. Freedom from the exhaustion of betrayal. Freedom to build relationships that honor the truth of your spirit. Consider this. You have lived as though your heart was an open door in a stormy night, inviting in both the warmth of light and the chill of shadow. It is natural to hope for light, but the shadows have often come disguised as friends. Now, imagine closing that door, not forever, but long enough to reclaim your space, to clear the storm's wreckage from your soul, to rebuild from a place of strength, not desperation. This act is sovereignty, the conscious, deliberate choice to guard your inner world as sacred ground. But sovereignty is not cold isolation. It is not suspicion turned into cynicism. It is a deep, living awareness of what is worthy of your trust and what is not. It is the cultivation of balance between vulnerability and strength, between openness and discernment, between hope and caution. The journey to this balance begins with self-awareness. Self-awareness is the lantern that lights the path through the dark forest of deception. You begin by looking inward, honestly and without shame. at your patterns of trust. When have you trusted too quickly? When have you ignored the warning signs because your desire to believe was stronger than your sense of self-preservation? This is not a weakness. It is the human condition, a soul yearning to connect, to belong, to be seen. But once seen, these patterns can be changed. You learn to slow down, to observe without rushing into the arms of anyone who offers warmth. You question the sudden rush of intimacy, the promises that sound too good to be true, the silence that feels like a lie. This awareness is painful. It forces you to confront the gap between who you wish people were and who they actually are. But pain is the crucible of transformation. It burns away illusions so the truth may shine brighter. Patience becomes your new ally. Trust is no longer given as a gift or a gamble. It is a seed planted carefully, nurtured slowly, watched with vigilant eyes. You no longer expect the world to meet you halfway immediately. You allow time to reveal the character beneath words and appearances. This patience protects you from the seduction of false promises. It grants you the power to say, "Show me, prove to me, earn this." Because power, as Machiavelli understood, often hides in the silent waiting. It waits for you to lower your guard so it can slip inside. But when you hold the power of patience, you control the tempo of trust. You decide when and how to open your gates. Discernment sharpens your vision. You learn to read between the lines, to listen not just to what is said, but what is left unsaid. Manipulators rely on your kindness, your hope, your empathy. They count on your blindness to the subtle shifts in tone, the contradictions in stories, the manipulative use of guilt and flattery. But you learn to see these invisible threads. The quick step to intimacy, the borrowed favors, the inconsistency in reflection. You notice how they test your boundaries, not respecting your limits, but pushing, pulling, until you crack. With this discernment, you reclaim your power to say no without fear. No longer do you question yourself. No longer do you accept half-truths as reality. You see the pattern and you step out of the dance of deception. But the most powerful ally in this transformation is self-trust. Your intuition, once silenced or doubted, becomes your guiding star. The soft whisper inside you that says, "This feels wrong," or "This is safe," or "I am worth respect." This inner voice is the most profound form of sovereignty, because when you trust yourself, no external betrayal can unmoor your soul. You become unshakable, not because you expect perfection from others, but because you no longer rely on them to validate your worth. This self-trust is the foundation for all healthy relationships. And then comes the most difficult step, choosing sovereignty. To guard your peace, your energy, your very soul, fiercely and unapologetically. This choice means learning to say no, not just once, but over and over again. Saying no to people who seek to drain you, control you, deceive you. It means walking away from relationships that no longer serve your growth. It means standing firm when the world pressures you to open your gates too wide. This is not easy. It requires courage that often feels like defiance. But the reward is a life free from the chains of manipulation and betrayal. When you embody this sovereignty, you change the world around you. You attract different people, those who respect your boundaries, who honor your truth, who engage with you authentically and with integrity. Your relationships shift from transactions of power to connections of respect. You no longer bleed energy into toxic dynamics. You no longer doubt your own reality because your inner compass is strong and clear. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence, the confidence of one who has faced the darkness and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. This transformation ripples outward, too. It shapes how you conduct yourself in business, in family, in friendships, and even with strangers. Your presence becomes a subtle declaration. I will not be used or deceived. I am the master of my fate. Power, as Machiavelli taught, is silent. It does not scream or demand. It waits patiently for those willing to claim it through wisdom and strength. So here is your invitation, your call to action. Begin today by observing your patterns. Notice where you give trust too freely and the cost it has exacted. Practice patience. Slow the tempo of your heart. Let trust grow not from desperation, but from proof. Sharpen your discernment. Learn the signs that signal manipulation's approach. Listen deeply to your intuition, your most faithful guide, and choose sovereignty. Decide that your inner peace is non-negotiable. If this message has stirred something within you, if you feel the pull toward this transformation, I invite you to take the next step with us. Like this video, help these truths reach those who need awakening. Comment below. Share your commitment, your struggles, your victories. Subscribe for more journeys into the hidden realms of power, trust, and self-mastery. Share this message with someone trapped in the game of false trust. Because awakening is never meant to be walked alone. Remember, true power is quiet. It is patient. It waits for the soul brave enough to see the truth, feel the pain, and rise beyond it. You are that soul. You are stronger than the shadows that have tried to claim you. Now, step into your power, claim your sovereignty, live free,